we're going to demonstrate how to install a computer cut clear paint protection film kit on the front bumper of this Mazda here.
I'm going to start off today by showing you the tools and the solutions that you'll need for the install. Always like to start off by doing that. You're going to need a 1, 2, or 3 inch rubber squeegee, 2 inch preferably, something close to that. A couple soft terry cloths, clean, 1 or 2 of those. I've got 3 different solutions here that we talked about in our other videos. A tack, a slip, and a semi-slip solution. These are the 3 that we're going to use today for the install. I've got a clay bar piece here. You can pick this up at any local auto parts store. It's a clay bar. We're going to use it to clean the surface where we're installing the paint protection film, removing any bugs, tar, grease, wax, that type of stuff. It's going to give us a nice smooth surface. We've also got a heat gun here. You're going to need a heat gun to heat seal the edges. Sometimes, depending on the weather that you're installing the material in, you may or may not need a heat gun, but most of the time it's nice to have it around to seal the edges when you're done. Maybe warm the material to help it stretch and such, and we'll cover that in the video. The first thing that we're going to do is prep the vehicle. I'm going to clean the surface. To do this, you want to use the alcohol and water. The clay bar, grab that there. Go ahead and spray the bumper of the vehicle. Grab your clay bar and just press it there. Just use an average amount of force. You don't need to press extremely hard. You don't need to go real fast. Just kind of go over the painted area everywhere that the material is going to be. Why I'm doing this, I'll go ahead and talk about the material. This particular vehicle is only a couple years old and it has quite a few rock chips here already. We're going to go ahead and protect this so that it doesn't get any worse. The lower to the ground, the more rock chips you're going to get. This one's been pelted pretty bad here. They're fairly bad here, and there's a few up here on the hood. They get worse down lower. So we're going to clay bar this vehicle. Before you clay bar it, when you spray it, it's actually a good idea. We've already cleaned it for time purposes for this video, but it's a good idea to clean the car first, spray it and clean it with the rag, and then clay bar it. That way you're not grinding the grit around on the surface. So if you're thinking I just started there and started grinding the dirt around, this car's been washed and then we've cleaned it once. You would spray it, just take the terry cloth and wipe that off, and then you would start this clay bar process here. And again, you're just doing the painted area that you're applying the bra to. This is very similar to wet sanding. That's basically what it is. Now that we've clay barred the bumper, the next thing we're going to do is make sure it's all wet with the alcohol and water solution. We're going to take our nice clean terry cloth. I always like to shake it off before I start, make sure that it doesn't have anything on the rag here. Go around and clean the vehicle. Wipe it down. I like to do a good thorough job. I like to get in these cracks around where I'm doing the install. If there's a little bit of dust or dirt buildup in there, when I spray it wet to apply the bra, the dust or dirt from the water will run down out of there and it will end up a contaminant behind my material. So when you're cleaning it after clay barring, go ahead and wipe it down and all the painted area, but go ahead and wipe everything around it. Make sure everything around your install is clean. You don't want contaminants, dirt and dust and things to run out of these areas behind where you're putting the material. It doesn't look good, and the material doesn't adhere as well when there's dust and contaminants behind it. Okay, once I've wiped that off, I'm going to go ahead and just take this rag that I used, and I'm going to kind of set it aside so I know that it's been used already. And I've got my second rag here, it'll be a nice clean one I'll use during the install. Set that off there. The next thing that I'm going to do is bring in my assistant here and demonstrate how to remove the clear paint protection film from the backing. This is a computer cut kit here. When you get your kit, you're going to have the bumper piece, and they range in measurement from this side all the way around to this side, anywhere from 80 inches up to 120, 30 inches. That's a pretty long pattern. If you have the option to split the pattern in the middle, like this vehicle here has a grill, this is a separate piece, where you have a license plate there, you can request that your pattern be split in the middle, so you don't have a 120-inch piece that you're working with. You can do one side of the vehicle and then do the other side of the vehicle. You'll have a little seam right here in the middle where you're buttoning it up. In this case, it's not going to be a big long seam. It's just a small one here and a small one here. And a lot of times the vehicle will have a license plate. Even if it were to be a bigger seam, the license plate would cover most of that seam and make for a much easier installation. In this case, we've got a 112-inch bumper that's been split in the middle. There's not going to be much seam on this vehicle. It's going to make for an easier installation, make things a little easier in the video. The first thing that I want to do, I'm going to spray the vehicle with the gel, this being the hand sanitizer mixed with the water. You're going to want to use quite a bit of this. You can't use too much, but it's not good if you miss a spot. So go ahead and just really get this on heavy where you're going to be working. Okay? The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the clear paint protection piece from the backing. You can do this yourself, but if you're doing a full bumper or a split bumper, an extra hand or having an assistant is always nice, and most people have someone around that can do that. It'll be pretty easy for them to do. So in this case, have my assistant hold the backing. I'm going to grab the gel again, that being the semi-slip solution, hand sanitizer, and water. As you're peeling the material from the backing, you want to spray as you're peeling it. If the material sticks to itself, it's really hard to get apart and can damage or ruin the kit. So as you're pulling the material off of the pattern, you want to be spraying it as you're doing that. One thing I might stress while I'm thinking about it here is always make sure your hands are clean. I've washed my hands before the video. If you've got dirty hands, dirty fingers from the car or something like that, especially on a white vehicle and you're touching the adhesive side of that material, you want to make sure your hand is really clean. Very important, especially on a white car. So, keep removing that off there. Go ahead and grab this other piece. You don't want to let the material touch the ground, so make sure that if you let go or you're peeling it off, that it's not going to touch the ground. It's high enough to stay up off the ground. Okay, this is a good example of as you're peeling this down, this material has another piece that comes up through the middle here, which is going to be around this piece here. So you have to stop there, come get this piece out of the middle, so that you're kind of keeping it together there. You can see after watching me do this piece here, how having this bumper split makes it a little easier. If I had this whole bumper, it would be quite a bit more work. Now I've got those two pieces hanging off dry there that I haven't sprayed, so I'm going to be really careful with those, make sure I get them really wet. Take this piece, I'm going to come over here to the vehicle, and when it's wet like that, you can see how it will just come apart. I actually was able to just shake it and it came apart. If you didn't spray that real wet or had a dry area, you wouldn't be able to do that and could damage the product. I'm making sure as I'm doing this, I'm being really careful not to let these tails touch the ground. Get dirt on them and contamination on them. Sometimes that can be difficult. You've got to hold a couple of them up and lay that on there. Don't worry about the exact positioning of the material in the beginning. Just get the bulk of it on the car. Be careful not to, get it up on this part of the car. If you're way off and you touch this piece that needs to slide down up on here, it can get dirt on it. Another reason why I stressed cleaning everything around the area that you're working in. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that on there, lay that piece on there. Now here's where I'm going to start positioning the material. Okay, this is a perfect example of why there's different solutions. Slip solutions, tack solutions. This computer cut kit, it needs to be lined up just right. As you can see, that's kind of high up on the chrome there. If I had a tack solution, I wouldn't be able to move this. With the gel, or even a slip solution, I can slide that down and line it up. You're going to be stretching, repositioning, and adjusting as you're installing, but you want to get it where it needs to be to start. So go ahead and you want to line it all up. So I've got some slack here. I'm just going to kind of pull that out. I'm looking at all these other edges, checking them. That one needs to go back a little. There's a little bit of excess here, so I'm going to kind of pull that. And you want to get it all laid and lined up where you think it needs to be. In this particular case, you see a little extra film there. I'm going to roll that in and take that way and up. And pull that down a little bit there. Bring that over there. Just kind of get an idea of where that needs to be. That's a rough positioning. We talk about the temperature and the environment to install this in. This is actually very important. You don't want to do it in inclement weather, windy weather. Indoors is always best, in a clean area, and temperature between 60 and 80 degrees. If it gets much colder, the material's cold, the adhesive isn't tacky, the material's harder to work with. Much hotter than 80, 85 degrees. It dries out too fast, makes it difficult to position. You've got to keep lifting and respraying. Direct sunlight is a bad idea, especially on darker colored vehicles. So indoors, 60 to 80 degrees, out of the elements, is the best advice there. It's much easier to do indoors. At this point, I'm going to grab the heat gun. I'm going to warm the material up just a little bit. If you're doing your install in the summer, you're in a hot area, it's 80 degrees, your material will be pretty warm. You can start stretching it. If you're closer to 60 degrees, maybe a little cooler, you can just kind of warm your material up. Notice that I kept the motion with the heat gun. You're just uniformly warming the material up, that piece of material. If you hold it in one position, you're just going to burn the material. And again, remember, if it's a warm day, you're doing this in a warm time of year, closer to the 80 degree mark, you won't need to do that. If you're out in your garage and you don't have a heater and maybe it's wintertime and it's 63 degrees, this is what you'll want to do. It'll be much easier on you. I'm going to go ahead and grab my slip solution. You can use any of the 3 solutions that we talk about in the videos to squeegee the material out. The alcohol and water, it'll be harder to move it along. The gel works just fine. That's kind of an expensive way to do it, but just baby shampoo and water. That's your slip solution. That's going to allow the squeegee to slide on the material really easy. How I recommend that you start your pattern is you work from one edge in, or from this side around. These are your skinny little tails. I would start on this side so that as I stretch it and go that way, you'll see in a minute it's easy to just trim these little pieces in the end and there's not a lot of stuff to be misaligned. So I'm going to start over here on the edge here. I'm going to make sure that this is lined up here. I'm kind of checking the edge here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just come in a little ways because there's a nice flat area here. Making sure that this is lined up here. One way to kind of get an idea of if your pattern's lined up correctly, you may have a question at home. You'll have your pattern and you'll go, well, is that where I want that to end? And is that how I want that to overhang? I don't know. Does that need to go up further? Think about it logically. The debris comes at the face of the car when you're driving down the road. So a flat area like this isn't going to get blasted because it's flat. So probably going to design the pattern to cut off on this line right here. This is exposed, this doesn't need coverage necessarily. So I would just kind of slide that up to where it's somewhere in that area. Make sure that you're not overhanging too far there. And that can just wrap around that edge a little there. You can also know that if you're correct on assuming that the pattern stops there, you can look and see if it looks like it's lined up correctly on the other angle. If you guessed and went way too high, it would throw this angle off. So you can kind of get a pretty good idea if you were right. Every pattern's different, every car is different, but it should be pretty straightforward. You're going to maybe get a little slack here, and this is where you're going to want to stretch it. I left myself a small 1/4 inch gap here. That way if I did stretch the material a little bit during the squeegee process, it wasn't overhanging when I was done. There is a little slack here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull with my left hand and squeegee with my right hand. This is not the best pattern all the way through. I like to overlap my pattern as I'm going. And I like to stretch to the corner and then uniformly work from the center out, overlapping my squeegee pattern and equally dispersing the stretch or the slack. This tab, this kit was designed in the software to have this piece separate from that piece for relief. The reason for that is if you have a piece of material that's 1 square foot, the adhesive is so thick on the back side. As you stretch it to fit around the curve of a vehicle, you're thinning the adhesive. It needs to be so thick to adhere and stay on the car good. So if there's a relief cut in the material, it's because the material won't make that stretch without it. If they didn't have that there, this curve plus this one down here, this angle goes off into that angle, it wouldn't work. The adhesive would be too thin, you'd have too much or not enough material, and so they design it that way for a reason. So here, this creates a tab. There's a lot that doesn't look like it really fits that well, but with that relief, that's going to allow me to pull down and stretch that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down with this hand. Sometimes you need to pull pretty hard. In this case, I'm pulling pretty hard there. And you squeegee down. Okay. And that's helping me get around this curve. Now I'm pulling really hard as I can, basically there on that. And I went down through the middle. Now I've got a little slack there and a little slack there. What I'm going to do is actually pull to the side and down, so I'm going to pull straight to the corner angle. Okay. That's going to allow me to use all of the area that was left to stretch it, not apply all the stretch in one area or 1 inch of it. I'm going to use the rest. That's why I went right to the corner there. I'm going to go ahead and grab this corner. I'm going to pull it at an angle towards the corner. Pull out, pull hard, squeegee that down. There's a little extra there. Now, as you're installing this, you want to make sure you don't leave any moisture under the material. You can come back and push it out or pop the material and push it out. It's best to overlap your pattern and get it all out really good the first time. There is a proper technique to that I'm demonstrating here. If you get a little bit of slack here, you've heard us refer to this before in some of our videos, our window tinting videos, as fingers because they look like a fingertip. Let those stay. The adhesive has a tack time, and so it gets stickier with time. Right now it's wet, it's not all that sticky. I can spend 10 minutes trying to push those out, or I can move on with my install, come back to those in 5, 10, 15 minutes. When they're sticky, I'll go straight at them and push them out, and then they'll stay out. I can see there that half of that went away, so it's starting to tack up. I've got this tail. I'm going to leave that tail for now and continue to work through here because then I want to meet that up there. So you can see finger, 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 these fingers here, that's the slack. If I just squeegee that out, I'm going to be left with all those and dealing with them. So the best thing to do, this is where you stretch the material. So I'm not going to come here and try to stretch all that at once. I'm going to stretch the first part and squeegee it, and I'll stretch the next part. To get it kind of going, what I like to do is kind of move it all at once. First, break it loose. When it's stuck there, you got to kind of make sure it's broke loose. See, it's stuck right there, so it doesn't want to move. Okay? So all you do is just pop that up. You can hear it relieve. When it does, this starts moving. Okay? So you can't have any stuck areas. That's why I say spray the vehicle generously and the material. Dry spots, when they meet on the bra in the car, it won't move. It won't allow you to stretch and position and line up the pattern the way it's supposed to be. So plenty of whatever solution you choose on the material, on the backside on the adhesive when you remove from liner, and the car. Perfect time to demonstrate why. Okay. You can see how I'm working the slack out here. This finger, I had 3 of them, I only have 1. You can watch that one go away. So when I pull on that, like this, you can see that that goes away. That's the idea, okay? So this here is pretty curved. I'm having a bit of slack and an issue there, so I'm going to just pull on that quite a bit. Go ahead, pull that real hard. Okay. And I'm holding that with my hand so it doesn't retract as I'm squeegeeing it out. So stretch the slack, hold, squeegee. Don't stretch the slack and then let off and squeegee, or it'll retract in the middle of your squeegee pattern. You can see I've got that excess slack there. Okay? I'm going to grab that. I'm going to pull it out of there. Okay? I'm getting this pattern perfectly lined up. Whoever designed this pattern did a great job. What I mean by that is it looks like I have a 1/4 of an inch extra there. Did I misposition it that way? Or is it? No. It's actually meant to wrap around the edge and cover that little lip right there. And I know I'm on the right track with where I'm putting this pattern because it's lining up perfectly. If you get partway through your install and where it's supposed to line up here is hanging over by 2.5 inches, you did something wrong. Quickly pop it off, respray it, reposition it. Okay? This curved area here. Just going to slide my hand along there. If you have any jewelry on, you don't want to wear that. Maybe you can scratch the bra. I like the rubber ring there. So, I'm just going to start squeegeeing this out. I can see that there's a little slack there and there, so I'm just going to go ahead and stretch that. Squeegee it out. I'm still pushing along and stretching and keeping the stretch on that as I'm squeegeeing it. Now I can wrap that around and squeegee it. That's something I'm going to have to let tack up and work on in a minute, but for now I want to lay it. Now I'm back to this area. Okay? There's a contour that comes down there. I like to run my finger kind of through that and get an idea of how that's laying. Okay? I'm checking this edge around the deal there and how it lines up with the light. We're lined up good. We don't have pattern overlap and clear up onto the light. We're not an inch short. It's right where it's supposed to be. You do get a little bit of forgiveness here. You could be a little short or a little this way on the light. You can always trim it with scissors or a knife or wireless tape if you had to. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you get it just right, they've done a pretty good job with the software nowadays. So it should fit just right. Go ahead and squeegee that down into there. Okay, this is going to end up kind of coming down and wrapping around that edge. But I always work my edges when I'm done. Come back to those a little bit. Just going to kind of check my pattern. So I'm going to slide that over now. There's a little slack there. And kind of stretch that over a little bit there. Come down to this piece here. See, I went ahead and popped that off of there. Lay that into there. Just kind of getting my work ready for me, getting in position, seeing how it's going to lay, getting a good feel for it here. You can see that I've laid this and it lines right up here, but by the time I get over here I have a really big gap here. If you take a look at that material line, when that lays, I'm missing coverage right here, but I'm not here. Don't let that worry you, because once you squeegee that, it's designed that way, because once you squeegee this down and you grab this and stretch it and pull up, you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, how that's going to line up. A lot of you will put your pattern on and go, oh, I don't want this 1 inch gap here. That's wrong. What'd I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. Go ahead and squeegee this down. Okay. Notice I'm not trying to wrap that all the way down around the edge. I'm just working on this section for now. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab this piece like I was talking about. Okay, and I'm just going to raise it up a little and stretch it over. Okay. I'm just going to, as I stretch it and pull up on it, it covers. So for the sake of the explanation in this video, I'm going to pull this back off. I normally wouldn't do that. I'm going to show you. We had about a 1 inch miss in coverage. If you want to take a closer look at that. When I peel this off, the material's clear up to there. See? So we were able to stretch that and raise it up. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and finish this area here now. I can see there's quite a bit of slack right here. Okay. I'm going to grab this material and I'm going to just pull a little bit. But there's certain areas of these patterns that are meant to stretch. What I mean by that is they don't always want you to grab the tab clear out here and stretch this whole section just to get rid of this curve. If you do that, you could overstretch. Like I could stretch this piece, for example, clear over a whole nother inch. That's too far. So what you want to do is actually just work on this area where the slack is. Try to pull that slack out just by stretching the material, say from here to here. Don't really stretch that much. When your hands get wet and your squeegee gets wet during the install, sometimes it makes it a little harder to pull on and handle the film. Just take your rag, your clean one, wipe off your squeegee, and wipe off your hands. As you could see when I was pushing on material, my hand just kind of kept slipping. So if you get your hand dry, don't use the dirty rag you used to clean, because then you get grit on your material. So I'm going to go ahead and pull on that now. See how when I just pulled here, it just pulled the slack out there. Okay? So now I just stretched this area. I don't need to stretch this area, so that would have been an overstretch. I just needed to stretch that area, and I laid that down. Okay? As you can see, as I squeegeed, it kind of moved down, so I'm just going to kind of press it back up there a little bit. Make sure it gets to that line. Okay? Do that. I'm going to go ahead and finish squeegeeing that out. Okay? Now this, I'm just going to make sure it's lined up top and bottom. It looks like it's where it needs to be. It doesn't need a stretch, so I'm going to go ahead and just squeegee it down. Okay? Now, on some of these computer cut kits, they're going to make them and design them to give you the most coverage. It doesn't always mean that that's what you're going to want. There is personal preference to some of these kits and modifications. And then what I mean by that is this car has this bottom lip on it. It's pretty low to the ground. We've got it up about an extra 6 to 8 inches right now, just to make it a little easier to install. What I'm getting at is this car is going to bottom out in the dips a lot. The material is meant to protect it from rock chips and debris. I've seen through a lot of years, I've been doing this with my store. I have about 20 years of doing this. people will bottom these cars out in dips, and underneath here, if you try to get the bra under there, it'll tear that up. So what I like to do a lot of times is not wrap the bra clear down underneath all of this, because what happens is when they do bottom out hard, it tears the bra up and can ruin the whole bumper. So a lot of times, and it's just a personal preference, again, you could wrap this piece under and leave it. And if you didn't ever bottom out, it would be fine, but if you start skidding underneath here and hitting stuff, you're going to tear up and ruin the piece of bra. And so what I would recommend doing in this case is just trimming off that extra piece with some scissors, and you're probably not using the whole piece of the pattern there, but that's up to you. You would just trim that off and be done, or you could go ahead and lay the whole piece like this. You can see that's laying really nice, but right here there's a lot of excess. That's because you got a double curve. You got the curve this way and a curve this way, and it's all kind of ended up here. That's why they've got the relief. So I need to stretch that. Get my hand dried off a little bit so I can get a hold of it. I'm going to pull to the corner, and I'm going to pull extremely hard, and I'm going to stretch that out of there. Okay, I've got a little bit of excess here. Okay, you can see this. We like to refer to them as fingers. There's a extra material there. Okay, how I would address that is I would grab my tack solution, the alcohol and water. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to peel this back off the top part. We were a little short there. Another good reason why that pattern's like that. Go ahead and spray your tack solution. If you're doing it in a warm environment, it'll stretch really easy. A little bit cooler, go ahead and warm up your material. Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stretch this way and up, and that'll get me right to where I need to be, and it'll get rid of that slack right there. So I'm going to first lay that and give that a good tug there. Okay, pull that up, finish that off, and then there's not very much slack left there at all, and I'll be able to, as that gets tacky, lay that down. If you stretch a piece and you get a little aggressive with it, you stretch it, and it starts acting like it wants to come off a little bit like it is here. I'll exaggerate it for you there. Okay? That's going to happen from time to time. As that starts getting sticky, it has a tack time. After a minute or two, you're going to squeegee it like that, and it's going to stay down. If it doesn't, you've overstretched it. Okay? You'll usually know because where those two patterns met, you'll be clear over here, but I'm pretty close to lined up, so I don't feel like I've overstretched it. It's how it was designed. They've test fit all these patterns. They've put these on a car. They've made adjustments. Here's some of this slack that I was talking about. Now that it's sticky, before when it was wet, you'd push it, they'd come right back. I'm guessing now that they'll probably stay gone. So it's a good time to kind of go over them. You can always push them down. They'll either stay down or they won't. And if they come back a little, then you give them another 5 or 10 minutes and you just stick them down. Okay? I'll probably come back and address that area a little bit later. I'm going to let it get sticky for now. Okay? You can see this is just up a little there, so I'm going to go ahead and roll that edge, squeegee that down. Okay? Check that. What I like to do is clean. I'm not finished with the install, but after squeegeeing, I like to immediately go to cleaning the bra. I like the material to be clean. It gives me a good idea of how good of a job I've done, if there's any moisture, gel, solution left behind. So I just spray it. I like to use the tack solution because it has rubbing alcohol and water in it. So it's really good for cleaning. It doesn't streak. It's just a better cleaning agent on it better. So you just try to clean this here. And I like to keep rotating the towel. I'm going. Try not to catch your edge and pull it back. Like I've got an edge here. If I just got real crazy towel, I peel that up. You don't want to do that. You get lint from the towel maybe underneath. So just pay attention to your edges when you're doing it. Okay. There's a lot of gel and moisture and stuff that I've squeegeed out sitting on that edge there. So I'll just push that off and it's going to be all over the rag there. So that's why I keep rotating that. I don't want to go smearing it around on the rest of the bra. Okay. I like to take the towel as I'm going along when you get little areas that aren't laying down there. And as I'm cleaning, I like to just take the towel and just slightly just push over them real smooth and lay them down and see if they start sticking down. Your fingers, your thumb, the rag's not a bad tool either, especially for this kind of stuff. It's what I got in the habit of doing through all the years. Been doing this for about 20 years now, window film and paint protection. So, just using that to wrap that. What it's doing is, as I'm pushing that down, it's any little bit of moisture it's pushing out, I'm catching it on the rag too. So this is where I inspect what I've done so far. I'm looking at it as I'm going along here. Also sealing down the edges, pushing out the little fingers, any little bubbles I'm cleaning. I'm kind of doing all that as I'm going along. Okay. That's all looking pretty nice. I'm going to point out a few areas to you now real quick. Obviously we have this edge is unfinished. There's a couple little fingers there. Okay. There's a little bit down on the bottom on this curve here. Very little. And those will push down. All this will be perfectly finished up in the end. But it needs to get sticky. Some of these areas they have to tack up. So what you want to do is you've got all the moisture squeegeed out, you've cleaned it, you've sealed your edges, and what's left are the areas that are going to need a little extra attention, but when they're really sticky, to get them to stay down. It's easier if you get 95% of that done. Finish the other half of the bra, or even just if that half was done, wait 10-15 minutes, come back, 20 minutes, whatever it may be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to install the other half of the bumper, and we'll show you how we do that. We'll just go over it again there and show you how to do a complete full bumper here. And then I'll come back and we'll address some of these issues, and we'll show you how 10-15 minutes will make these tack up and lay right down. Now I'm going to move on to the other half of this full bumper install here. I'll point out a couple things on this side first. This car is a year or two old. It's got 50,000 miles on it and quite a few chips down in here I want you to take a close look at. This is what the paint protection film protects from. We're going to put it on this vehicle for demonstration purposes and also leave it there so that this doesn't get any worse. We'll protect it from further damage from rock chips and such. There's quite a few chips down here on this bottom area, more chips on the lower half, quite a few here, and they lessen as they go up. This is your area where you get the damage. This is a bumper sensor. Some vehicles have it, some don't. Some kits specify to let them know if you have one. You may have 4 of them, you may have one big one. They're all different sizes, but that's what that circle is, a bumper sensor. Okay, our computer cut paint protection film kit here has a little round piece in it. You'll want to find that when you first get your kit if you have a bumper sensor, so that you don't discard it during the install, and keep that, set it aside so that you can install it when you're done. It'll be the last thing that you do. If you do it sooner, that's fine, but you may knock it around during the install, so I like to do that last. So that's a bumper sensor, that's the chips. We're going to move on to installing the second half of this bumper. This is a full bumper piece, it's a full bumper install. Like I mentioned earlier, this pattern was split here in the middle to make for an easier install. It has a big grill here, this is a separate piece. It just had a little area here and a little area here. So by requesting that this pattern be split in the middle, we can do one half and then do the second half. If it's further up, like I said earlier, still splitting, it's going to make it a little easier for you. You can request that it be split, or you can split it yourself when you get it right down the middle and just butt that up. A lot of times there's a license plate that covers that. The material's clear, and if you get it butted up real nice, you don't see it much anyhow. Personal preference again. So we cleaned this bumper earlier in the video. We clay barred it earlier in the video. The first thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is spray it with the gel, hand sanitizer and water. Like I said earlier in the video, be very thorough and generous with the, the solution. You can't use too much, use quite a bit of it. What you don't want is dry areas. So a lot of times when you split a bumper, you can remove it yourself. I'm going to have my assistant here. I'm sure you guys can all find one if you need one. She's going to help me remove the backing from the pattern. So you kind of drop that down. Have your helper hold the backing, the white part. Okay, they're going to hold that. You're going to peel off the material. So go ahead and grab your gel here. Have them hold on to it really good. So that if they have a light handle on it, you start pulling, you pull it out of their hands. It gets dirty. So have them hold on to it really good there. Make sure your hands are clean again, and just start peeling that down. As you're peeling it, go ahead and spray it. Spray them in the face. Alright, peel that down. Start peeling that pattern down. This material is dry and sticky to the touch. You want to wet it as you're going, because if this material sticks to itself and it's dry, you're going to have a really hard time pulling it apart, probably damage the material. If it's wet, it comes right back apart. So that's what you want to do there. I'm going to pull that down until it catches the first area where it wants to stop there. Okay, there's a little piece here. I'm going to push from the back side so I can get a hold of that and peel that down. I'm going to go ahead and come back up to this piece here and peel that down and spray it, like I said, as I go, where it meets this other piece here. You don't want these tails to touch the ground, they'll get dirty. Okay, keep it up off the ground there, and go ahead and peel that off the rest of the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and just stop so I can get that a little wet, and then go ahead and pull that away there. And keep those tails there. They're dry and they're sticky, so I want to get those wet as soon as possible. So if they touch the other part of the pattern there, they're easy to get apart. Okay, see how they come apart there? I don't want those tails right there to touch the ground. As I lower this to get it in position, they're going to want to touch the ground. And make sure I keep those up. Go ahead and get that there so that it stays. Okay. I've got a little piece, this tail stuck here. It's wet, so it's just going to come right off, like I explained earlier. We'll get pretty close to the ground there, so I'm going to keep a real close eye on that. So I'm going to keep that longest tail with that one in my hand, making sure that it doesn't get dust, dirt, contamination on it. Touch a part of the car I don't want it to, especially the ground. That's why I stress cleaning the area around where you're working earlier in the video, as well as where you're applying it. So if your material touches the light, it doesn't end up with dirt all over it because you didn't clean the light. Just clean the light. If it touches it, it'll stay clean. Okay. Now I don't want to drop that other tail there because it will draw upon the ground. Keep an eye on it. See it's right there. Just make sure you keep that up. Okay, you can always position it and realign it once you get it on, but get it in position there first. Okay, I like to, your hands are going to get wet during the install, and there's going to be times where you want to dry them off so you can get a good hold of the bra. Okay, now just like the other side, we're going to position this and line it up everywhere. We'll start checking our edges. You've got this sensor here, so you want to kind of line that up. Now, every vehicle's different. You may have a curve on a bumper where your sensor pattern looks like that and it's way off. Okay? If you've got some curve here and some slack here and stuff, you're going to end up stretching it to fit where it needs to go. So if I line this up, and then eventually I'm going to stretch this and get rid of these fingers, and eventually that's going to get right where it needs to be. Okay? So start with one edge here, like this edge and this inside edge, and just kind of make sure that's lined up. And if you look over there and that's off a little, as long as this is lined up, eventually as you stretch and work that way, that's going to line itself up. You don't want it, extremely far off, but a little bit, because you're going to need to stretch it to get rid of this slack. It's going to end up where it needs to be. So line up your edge there, kind of just doing a rough position here, kind of laying that down, making sure that's in place, seeing how that's going to go there. Okay, and that looks like it's in line with what we're wanting. Okay. On a warm day, your material is going to be warm. You can go right into the squeegee. If you're doing it in a little cooler temperature, material may be cold, car may be cold, maybe winter. Your garage may not be heated. Want to keep the heat gun moving and just uniformly warm up all the material. Makes it stretch a little easier, makes it stick a little better. I like to use the slip solution. That's the water and baby shampoo. On the surface of the material, it allows the squeegee to slip as you're running along. Like we did on the other side, I want to start on this side. I want to go ahead and line up this edge and get that about where it needs to be there. Okay, this is kind of a nice big flat area. I'll just start in the center here and kind of work my way from the center out. You want to overlap your squeegee pattern. Okay, you don't want to do a big long stroke here and here. You want these little jabs where you're overlapping. You're not leaving any moisture behind. That's the idea. Get all the moisture out from behind there. It doesn't hurt to squeegee too much or overlap or keep working that area, because now you've got all that out. These are bad patterns. Full strokes. You want jabs. Okay. You can pull to these corners and kind of ride that off there and then finish that there. You got a little bit of slack here, so I'm going to grab this corner. I'm just going to kind of pull down, get rid of a little bit of that slack there, squeegee that out. You can do one stroke off if it's less than 4, 5, 6 inches. You just don't want to do a big run through the pattern there. Okay. So go ahead and pull down on that a little bit. Squeegee that down there like that. I'm going to leave this and address that in a minute. Okay, I don't need to stretch this whole piece now, so you don't want to come over here and grab this tail and try to be tugging all that out of there, okay? You work in sections as you work your way over. So I'm going to address like the next foot here, okay? So as I stretch that, you can see this slack here and this slack here. As I pull, it pulls the slack out of that. If I squeegee it before I do that, you see I'll squeegee it and the slack will stay there. That's not going to work. So stretch, hold, come through the center, and work your way over. What you want to do when you're squeegeeing up, as you're coming up with the pattern here, you want to end up coming all the way off the edge of the bra. So that gets all the moisture out from behind there. If you stop here, it's the gel or the solution that's behind there is going to run down behind the material. that's not really what you want. If that happens, you need to just work it out of there. But an easier way to do that is work your way up and then right off the edge of the material and get all the moisture out from behind there. Okay? Come down, overlapping your pattern. There's a little slack, so give that a little extra tug there and keep pulling my hand along like this as I'm going. Okay, I'm going to roll my squeegee off that edge. That's going to take all the moisture out from behind there. Okay, got a little slack there, a little there, a little there. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at how my pattern's lining up as I'm going. Always pay attention to your edges as you're going, okay? I can see that's down a little low, but I know that that's going to need a little stretch, so I'm going to stretch it and push it up into position. Okay, I've got my sensor here I'm trying to line up. It's a little bit, just a little off. It's starting to line up as I'm stretching it. We had about a 1/2 to 3/4 inch gap, and you can see as I stretch that part, and now when I stretch this one, it's going to line up perfect. Okay, but it was quite a bit off at the beginning. Okay, you want all this to move. Okay, see how this whole piece is moving here? Okay, if you've got a little spot that's stuck, let's say you had a spot, like I hit that with the squeegee, right? That won't move. Okay, I need it all to move. If that happens to you during your install, grab your solution. First, just push real hard and you try to break it free. Okay, I was able to do that, but if it doesn't break free, you just peel it back. You'll see where your dry spot is and where it's not moving. You just spray a little moisture behind there. Okay. Now you can move that all at once. That's what you need to be able to do. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that along there, getting rid of some of that slack, checking my edge here on my sensor. And as I hold with my left hand, I'm going to work my way over with the squeegee. Okay? And all that gel is going to come out right on the edge of that, right at that sensor. Okay? See it all coming off there. That's what you want. Okay? There's a little slack there, so I just kind of want to stretch that up to the corner. Okay? Now that I haven't laid that, you see I stopped. I didn't really want to tack that because I'm still working this way. I actually want to stretch that, and I'm going to go right through the middle, and I'm going to kind of work that way and that way. That equally helps me disperse this slack that's left. Okay? Push that moisture out. Okay? Stretch that. Get a little slack there and some gel behind there. Okay, so if I pull up on that as I'm going, work the gel out from behind there and work my way over. I'm going to roll off the edge and back. Okay, quite a bit of gel there. Okay, doesn't hurt to kind of go over it again and just kind of check it. Okay, now this tail piece is separate from this tail. This is the next area I want to dress and get back over to there, and then I'm completed, and then I can deal with those. Okay? You could finish those two tails and then do that section. That probably wouldn't be too bad of an idea. I've done this for a really long time, so you can tell by looking at the pattern that that's going to be a little easier way to go about it. Sometimes there is two ways to do something, and they both work out in the end. One's just a little bit easier. So in this case, this is going to be easier, and I know that, so I'm going to go ahead and lay this piece down in there. Squeegee that through there, push all the moisture out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just pull that off. I'll work down here. Okay, I got a little slack, a little extra, I'm going to roll that. Okay, I'm going to overlap my pattern and squeegee that out. Okay. Like I talked about on the other side, cars bottom out a lot down here. It's personal preference. You can wrap that down for coverage. If you think in your travel you're hitting a dip and you're hearing that scrape as you're driving down the road, I would trim that piece off. Okay, you're not gonna. You might ask the question why you're not gonna get coverage down there. Well, that's gonna get all scraped up anyways, and no one really sees under the vehicle. And what's gonna happen is when you tear that up on the bottom of the road, it's gonna tear your whole piece up, and you're gonna need a new one. So if you just trim that off, get your coverage here on a car that's low to the ground with a bottom lip like this, that's probably a good idea. I've seen it through the years. A lot of times cars, they'll come back into my pro shop and that piece will be all peeled up because they bottomed it out and it's just really dug it up. So you could, people that design these patterns, they give you the most coverage that they can, and then some of these choices are up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and like I showed you on the other side, that didn't quite line up. And the reason why is because it wants you to stretch it here to help deal with that slack if you were to wrap it. And so I'm going to pull that way and I'm going to pull up. So I'm pulling that way and up. Okay. And as I get around, I'm going to go up with it. That way I get closer to this edge and get the coverage that I want. Okay. I'm going to trim this off probably eventually, but for now I'm going to go ahead and show you what you would do if you laid it, which is just squeegee it out. Okay, this is a little extra. I'd pull the slack out, squeegee that down. Okay, and now I've got some slack there like I talked about on the other side, so I may even pull that back up, pull that slack out, tug it straight up just a little bit harder there like that. And what that's going to do is help me get rid of a little bit of slack that was on this body line there. Okay, this piece here, this needs a good tug. So tug straight down. Okay, I can tell that's going to need a good tug. It's a double curve. What I mean by that is it curves this way and it curves this way, like an egg. So geometrically, a 1 foot by 1 foot piece of material is meant to go on a flat surface that's 1 foot by 1 foot. When you start dealing with curves, it's 12 3/4 by 13 1/2 by 14 1/8. And so what happens there is you've got to stretch the material, and geometrically it's fits really well on a flat surface, and you've got to stretch it when you start dealing with curves. So you're pulling on that. Okay, and laying that down. Oops, cut the edge there. You can see there's a little bit of material there, just a little bit of extra. It's wet, it's not very sticky. 5-10 minutes it'll be really sticky. I'll come back, squeegee that down. It'll stay down. We'll address that in a minute. I'm not going to waste my time doing it for the next 10 minutes. I'll come back when it's sticky. Okay, these little things, they've been sitting up for about 5 minutes. You can see they look like a fingertip. We refer to them as fingers in our videos. There's a few of them along that edge. You can go ahead and just give those a little push. We'll hit them again with the towel when we clean it in a minute. Okay, come back over to here and grab this tail and give that just a little pull. Not too hard because I don't have a lot of wrinkles and I can tell it doesn't need stretch. I'm just kind of holding on to it to keep it in line. And there we go. Now I'm going to grab this one. This is really curved right here. I mean, this has a nasty bite to it. Top, bottom, this way. If I just squeegee that out, I'd have a bunch of slack and a big bubble there I couldn't get rid of. I'd have quite a bit down here. And I don't want to grab this tail like I talked about on the other side and start pulling to try to stretch this whole section, because I'll end up clear overlapped here. I want to leave that be, and I just want to stretch it here where it needs it. This is where the slack is. This doesn't need it. Okay, so I'm just going to take my hand here and make sure it's dry so I get good hold of it. I'm going to give it a pretty good pull there, and as I pull that, you notice that this slack and this slack goes away. Okay, so I pull that starts going away, and that starts going away, and then I squeegee that down. Okay, and then I roll the squeegee down over that edge. Don't expect it to be perfect. You get an area like this, going to be your problem area. Don't expect it to just always stretch to be laid it down. You can see that popped back up right there. The first thing that you may think, if you're learning, is that that's not going to work and you're in a big bubble on your car. No, that's not the case. It's wet. It's not very sticky yet. Eventually, you're going to just run your finger through there or squeegee that down or press with the rag, and it's going to stay. It's got a tack time. Okay. Same with this little area down there. You've stretched it. You don't want to overstretch it and thin the adhesive too much. So you'll just press that down in a minute. Okay. So I'm going to got that. I'm going to go ahead and pop that loose. As you can see here in the middle, this piece of clear bra ends here, and this one ends here. There's a 1-inch gap. Okay? You're going to pull it, stretch it. If you see here, I can stretch that clear over to the other piece. I could probably overlap it 1 inch onto the other piece. Okay, I don't really want to. I want to butt it up, just right up nice, clean, right next to the other one. I'm going to pull that till it's right up next to the other one. I'm going to hold it, and then I'm going to squeegee it. And now it just about met the other piece. I don't want to overlap it. I actually want to leave a slight gap there. Okay? If I overlap it and it'll peel off, or I'd have to trim it so it wouldn't, and I'm cutting on the car, so I just stop it just shy of the other piece. Okay. Go ahead and wrap that down around that edge there. Okay. Go ahead and give that another little push and kind of come through there. You're always going to have a handful of areas when you're done that are the areas that you need to address, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is dry off my squeegee, dry off my hands. Like I always say, I like to clean the area that I just did so that I can see my install, see if I missed any gel or anything behind there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Clean this area off. And the area around it where the overspray is on the headlight and up here and the grip. Might as well make that all nice, okay? I'm going to clean that up. Wipe that off. Okay. Okay, by cleaning what I've done, I can see, I'm starting to see what my end result's going to be and my finished product's going to be, and if I'm happy with it. A lot of times when you have a lot of gel and moisture on the outside, you may not recognize that you missed some behind and need to push it out. I've got all of mine, but you may not, and it's real easy if you clean it to do it right now, right away before it's tacked up. So when I'm doing this, I like to go around to these edges that I've got to work on and work down. Okay, and I just kind of, well, I've got this towel in my hand, it absorbs the moisture as I push it to the edge. Okay, and I'll come to these little fingertips where there's just a tiny bit of a little slack left there, and I'll roll those off the edge with the towel, and the moisture that I may push out from behind them is getting absorbed onto the rag, so that helps. It's not running down under the material there on the bumper. Okay. It's going to need a little longer to tack up. That's actually that edge. If you remember earlier in the install, this had a lot of slack. We stretched it, we squeezed it, we weren't left with much. It tacked up, we pushed it out, and now it's like 99% done. It will need a little bit longer. I'll come back along in a minute and really give it a good final seal, but you can see that's how it's done. Okay, come back over here. I've got these two little areas down here. I'm just pressing on it. My fingers are under the towel there, okay? Like that, and so I'm just using my hand and rolling that edge, pushing the moisture out, wrapping it around. Okay, just starting to kind of work that into place. Okay, as I'm cleaning, then I rotate from that wet spot. Soak with the solution to a dry one. Just start working that out. I'm looking as I'm going along. I'm pushing. I'm also looking to see what I think of the install, the moisture. If I got it all, just kind of sealing the edges and cleaning it up. This area need to get a little stickier because what happens is that's a valley, okay? And so the material normally would just go flat from this point to this point. It would just go flat. So when you get it down the valley, it wants to pop out, okay? That's what the adhesive's for. It's sticky. Sometimes you'll see cars that are real aggressive like that, and they'll have a cut in the material there to relieve it. It's called a relief cut because it's too much of a valley. They've tested it when they've designed the pattern and found that it keeps popping and it doesn't stay. This one doesn't have a relief cut. They've put it on a car. It's held up. The valley's not too deep. The adhesive's strong enough. It's fine. So once that gets tacky, we'll see here in a few minutes, eventually it will stay. I'll speed that process up with the heat gun in a minute. I'll demonstrate how you can do that. Okay, you always want the heat gun on high. And you don't want to hold it in one place and burn the material. You keep it moving. So high. Okay. You can just warm that area up and it'll speed up the tack time process. You can heat up your edges. I like to heat my edges just quick. You're not trying to get them really hot and melt them down. You're just warming them. Okay? Just warm the edges, warm the valley, warm this little spot, this little edge, this little section. Your last little few places that you need to lay down, just warm them, okay? And I'll show you why in a second. Okay. So this area here would need 5 or 10 minutes to tack up, and it kept popping out. I've warmed it up, it's increased the tack time, made it sticky, also made the material a little more flexible. Okay, and we'll go ahead and push that down in there now and hold, okay, and just work around these other edges. It's probably not going to fully stay down right now, but you can see by warming it up, it caused the adhesive to get tackier quicker. Okay, same with this edge. You know, we pushed it down a few times. It's going to need to get sticky and be worked down. But heating it up, I can probably go along right now and just go ahead and push that down. Be real careful and light with it. Go ahead and roll that up a little. Okay, and that kind of sped that up. I'll still need to work on it for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. We won't make you sit there in the video and watch it dry, but the point is I want to demonstrate how to address these issues, because there's some things that's easy about this process, and there's the issues that you're going to run into, and those are the ones that I really want to make sure that I go over thoroughly and teach you how to address those issues so that you have a good end result. Okay, so you get little, you can see there's a little bubble there. They actually have a relief cut coming in right there. And there's a little bubble right there. I'm just going to push it towards the relief cut. And then the air and moisture are going to pop out in that cut, and I'm just going to drive it off the edge. Okay? That's done. Okay? And I keep working on these edges. Okay? I remember a long time ago and through the years learning how to do this. One of the issues was you get a piece on there. It's 95% done. It's clean. You follow the process. It looks great. You're like, cool. And you end up with these few little areas. And you're afraid that that bubble's going to stay or that this little finger's going to stay. And you don't know how to make it go away. So I'm really going to help you here by just showing you how to get rid of those last little few areas. Because that's probably going to be the most important thing. Is to teach you how to address those spots, okay? Letting them get sticky is number one. Number one, let them get sticky. When they're wet and they're not that sticky, you can push it down all day for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 if it's cold, and they're just going to keep coming back. Let it dry out, come back 5, 10, 15 minutes later, push it down, it'll stick down, okay? I showed you how I sped that process up here on this. I'm going to pick another area, problem area for you here, okay? Right here you can see this material is not stuck down, okay? It's got to wrap around that edge. There's two things you can do. You can mark a line with a dry erase marker and just trim it off with scissors. You can trim it off with scissors without marking a line. Or you can work on it for a minute and try to wrap that edge and get yourself a little better coverage. That's kind of the professional way to do it, custom way to do it, right way to do it. Just warm that up. Okay. You could use your squeegee to do it. I like, when I get to these edges, I like to use my hand and the towel. If this is a black car, warm day, the car's warm, the material's warm, it's 82 degrees, you're not going to need a heat gun. That's going to be so warm and so sticky that right away within 2 to 5 minutes you're going to be able to just stick it down. I went ahead and warmed it up to speed up the process for the video, and also closer to the 60, 65 degree mark and 70 degree mark in here. And so you can see that I heated that up, gave it a fair amount of heat, and I literally just wrapped that edge. That quick, in less than 1 minute, I warmed that up, the adhesive got tacky, and it's stuck. It's done, it's down. I got a little extra coverage around the edge. I didn't have to trim it. And now that edge that you may have been worried about that didn't look nice and wasn't finished, wasn't stuck, is now a good finished product. It's going to stay on there, it's going to work. It's okay. So we're getting down here. We had this little bit on the edge. Probably can't even see in the video. It's very minimal on that edge. It's so sticky now. I just run that on there and I know it's sticky. Done enough of this that we're good there. You could always check it over an hour later, the next day too, if you had an area you just kind of wanted to keep an eye on for a couple days. But if you follow all the process and the tips here, you should be done when you're finished and not have to do any touch-up or anything the following day or anything like that. But just keep an eye on it. We've got this little area we talked about there. That was a bubble clear to here. We pushed it down a few times. It was wet. We heated it. I would like you to take a look at that right there. There's still a small bubble right there on the edge. You may see that and be like, I've pushed that down. I've heated it. It's been 10 minutes. Okay? Either give it more time or heat it up. Keep your heat gun moving. Okay? Warm it up. Okay? And just take your finger and just press on it and hold. What you're doing is the adhesive's warm, it's sticky. You're holding it to the car while it dries and cools off. Okay? You just hold some pressure on it there. Push it out and hold some pressure on it. Okay? And now you can see it's completely down. My guess is it will never come back up. You've got this little edge right here. You can see a little bit of slack there and some fingers. That's another area. Now what's going to happen here, because it's right up against this grill, there's moisture behind there. So when I keep pressing with my fingers, yeah, it's sticking it down, but it's not really getting the moisture from behind there. So what you want to do here is grab your tool, because it's a sharp edge and a wedge, and it's going to fit. It's going to roll that edge and push all the way to the very edge of the material, pushing the moisture out from behind there, all of it. And once you do that, you push all the moisture out from behind, you roll over the edge of the material. Okay? That's going to make it stay down. Okay? Now we've finished that edge. This lined up. We dealt with that. We sealed this, wrapped that edge in. Okay? There's still a little bit here. It's the same process. Tack up, push out. And you could trim that material on the bottom or leave it like I talked about. We pulled that over. This got lined up. You could take the towel and just kind of work this edge here. Right here, there's a little bit of slack here. I'll go ahead and pull that up so you can see it there. A little bit down there. Okay? You can give that time, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, or you can take the heat gun, like you saw me do there. You could just warm it up. Okay? Like I said, don't hold it and burn it. Keep the motion going. Okay? Just take your hand, just press and hold, press and hold, press and hold. Just kind of wrap that around and just hold it. Let the adhesive dry. You can see now that's nice and smooth. Probably not going to pop back up. Okay, I've gone over sealing the edges here, installing this, addressing the little issues, and I'm going to talk to you about if you do have bubbles, air or moisture behind the bra when you're done. Like I said, I've been doing this a really long time, so my squeegee pattern is good and I didn't leave any behind, but I'm sure that some of you will occasionally from time to time, and I'm going to help you figure out how to get rid of air bubbles, moisture behind the bra, water bubble, and what size is okay to leave and what's too big and needs to be addressed, okay? So if you had an air bubble, okay, a pocket of air, any air bubbles you want to get out, okay? It's not going to dry out most likely unless it's really small. So if you have any air bubbles that are any bigger than the size of a pea, or just, you know, the end of your pinky fingernail, anything that's a good size air, you're going to have to get it out, okay? You can poke the air bubble with a needle right in the middle and then press on it and it will go out. That's one way to do air, probably the easiest way. If you take an air bubble and you try to run it up to the edge, you're going to leave glue smear through the material. That's not what you want to do with air. With air, you can just take the air bubble and press your finger on it and hold, and a lot of times if it's small, it will just press out. If it's a little bit bigger and it's air, you can actually, like if I had one here, you could actually pop that material, spray it wet, and just squeegee it right back down, and the air bubble will go away. Or you could just poke with a needle, just poke a hole in the air bubble and press on it. That's air, okay? You're not going to have a lot of air bubbles. You will probably get some learning. My recommendation is you're going to see a measure going, pop the piece, spray it wet, and relay it. That's the easiest way, and address it then. If you missed one and you notice it later in the install, poke a hole in it and press it down. Okay. If that doesn't work, then you're going to need to peel that material and re-wet it and lay it, even if it's 10-20 minutes later. Okay. And you can damage the material when you do that if you wait too long. So if it's 80 degrees, you're doing a black car, you've got a big air bubble there, 30 minutes later you worked on that side and you try to pop that material, there's a chance that you can damage the material or the adhesive or leave lines in it, and you may have to deal with that and leave it or order a new piece or whatever. That may happen from time to time. But pretty unlikely. You'll probably see it as you're going, be able to peel it, spray it wet, and address it then, or poke a hole in it and get rid of it. That's air, okay? Moisture. If you leave moisture behind, you've got a patch of it here, or some of it running down here that you didn't notice, okay? Moisture's different. If you have a moisture bubble, you can just squeegee it, okay? If my pattern ends here, and I have moisture here, okay? It's moisture. You can run it through the material, okay, and 9 times out of 10 it's not going to leave a snail trail or an adhesive trail, a smear in the glue, because it's moisture going through it as you're pushing it out, okay? So I would just spray the bra wet like that, and I'd find my bubble that was there, I'd start below it, and I would just run it up and out the edge there, okay? And it would just go like that. Okay, one thing that you may run into, if it's too tacky above, you may take your gel and go to push it, and it stops. It won't move. It won't go. It's bunching up the material, and you can't get it to the edge. Okay? At that point, I'll go ahead and just peel this and demonstrate it right now. Okay? If I had an air bubble here that I couldn't get rid of, or I had a moisture bubble that I had moved and it only moved so far and I could not get it to the edge, okay? Say it was here. I would peel this slow. You don't want to grab it, just yank down on it, because that's where you damage the material. Okay? But shortly after the install, depending on temperature and certain things, you'll be able to just pull that material down. Okay, now we're going, okay, we're at our bubble, let's go the rest of the way, we're past it. Okay? And you just spray your solution in there like that. You go ahead and just lay that back down. You're like, well, that's kind of wrinkly, it's got a little slack in it. You can either stretch it and lay it or heat it. Because you pulled on it down, it kind of stretched it. You just warm that up a little bit with the heat gun, just a little bit. Spray it wet so the squeegee slides. Okay, grab the material, pull to the corner, and then you just push that bubble and that moisture back out, and you've worked it to the edge and off the top. Okay, and that's how you've pushed your moisture out from behind there. You go ahead and, like we did in the video, you clean what you just worked on, make sure it looks good. You didn't leave moisture behind again. Okay, heat this edge up. Okay, roll that off. Like I demonstrated before, to get back in here, you can just use that squeegee. Roll off the edge of the bra and push the moisture out. Okay, wipe that off. Now you've peeled that back, you've sprayed it out and pushed your moisture out, and that's how you address that stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Post your questions and positive comments below. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For updates, new products, and giveaways, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
See you later.